we all thought this one was a good one. I've lost motivation to keep pushing my side hustle, but I do miss it. How do I get it back? And that's from T Clark Freelance on Instagram.
So I think this is a really interesting one for two reasons. One, because I was there not too long ago, as David knows, because we had a really interesting DMC on the roof of your office by mistake, wasn't it? We were just having a catch up and turned into DMC of basically that exact situation with me. But also, I think my answer to this is going to be totally different to yours, which I think is going to be super interesting. So I would say just sit on it and wait for the inspiration to come back, because that's what I did. The more I forced myself to try and do stuff, the more I was like, I'm just not in the mood for it. I'm just really uninspired by it. And I actually had to end up giving myself 2 weeks, or it was a week and a half to just not engage in writing, recording. I think I even skipped posting the podcast for the week, which I've only ever done once before. All of that stuff.
Did you get any feedback? Did anyone complain that? No,
I didn't get one. Clearly, people don't care that much, as I thought. No one. Just generally, no one really said anything. And it was like by the time the next episode came out, it was like as if nothing had happened. But for me, a lot had changed because I had taken myself out of all the situations and I'd allowed myself to just do stuff and not be worrying about trying to be creative, trying to find a motivation to record, trying to find a motivation to write and all of that stuff. I just allowed myself to do everything else that I would not normally do. Not normally do, but like just go and sit in the park and read a book, go for a long walk, just enjoy like smaller things. And then all of a sudden, like it all just came firing back in.
Did you ask yourself why you felt like that, or why you thought you felt like that? Because I'm guessing that's kind of almost hitting maybe a level of like burnout in terms of you've been doing the same thing for a certain amount of time and now it's just become a bit too much and it's just frazzled you. Or is it because it's like, I think the question's really interesting for me because it's like, if you're not liking doing this, is it because you picked the wrong side hustle? Like, are you doing a side hustle for just to make money from it, or are you doing it because it's actually something you're really passionate about? Like people, like the phrase side hustle, I feel like that's people forcing it to become a business. Like it should just be a passion that can earn you money. Like would you be doing that side hustle if money wasn't involved? If you could do it for free forever, would you continue to do that? Because that's an interesting question for whoever's messaged there. Like, do you actually want to do this, or are you just doing it because there's a chance to make money from it? It's like if I wanted to, I was thinking really random things, but if I wanted to open a coffee shop, like it would be quite cool. Like I could go and do that if I wanted to get really into making coffee on the side, but I'm only doing it because I think there's money to be made there. I'm not doing it because I've actually got a passion about coffee. Then that's when I need to really start thinking about, am I doing it for the right reasons? Like, am I doing this because I actually love it and it makes me happy, or am I doing it because it makes me money? And if you're doing it because it makes you money, then it's not a side hustle, it's your job. It's like, if you don't enjoy your job, you're just basically creating a second job for yourself. Don't do that. Like a side hustle should be something that takes you away from something that you're not enjoying doing and allow you to do something that you do enjoy doing.
It's your escape, and that could potentially lead to, if you love it that much, to full time. Like you can break away. Like it's on the side for now as you're kind of bringing it to the boil, and as soon as it's on the boil, then you leave wherever you're at now and you move on. But I couldn't say it better than myself. I think that really nails it. It's like looking into why is it fatiguing you? Is it something that really brings you joy? Because if it does, then it shouldn't feel like work, even though there obviously is a lot of work involved in setting up your side hustle.
Because it's like, I don't know anyone who's just had a hobby that has got fatigued from it or got bored of it, or like we're just like, oh, I hate this hobby now. Like I used to play basketball, like National League, and that was great, and it was a proper hobby that became it got too competitive. Like the fun for me went out of it, and that's why I stopped playing, because it just wasn't fun anymore. And I stopped, and that was fine, and I just moved on to something else.
I think that's kind of where I was at, to be fair, was that I was trying too hard to force it into becoming something that was going to pay me, and stopped doing it because I enjoyed it, which is why I had to allow myself to step away from everything and remember, actually, I quite like sitting down, setting up the equipment, having these types of conversations. And I had to give myself the time to realize, which is why I say to that person, if you sit back, allow yourself the time to find the passion for it again, and you might not. Like with you in basketball, you might not, which is fine, because you'll find something else. If you're that if you're that way inclined, you will always find another passion, another hobby, another side hustle, whatever you want to call it. So,
but if it is something you love, then like just be tough on yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, which is where we kind of disagree. I wouldn't want to step away from it. I just advocate like just going for it. Like, it's the process. It's like if you are enjoying doing it, then keep doing it. If it's not bringing you joy, then you need to look at it. But then also knowing that nothing worth doing is easy. Like everything that all of us in this room that we've achieved that has been worthwhile has been hard work.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fun, and some of, like, me and him look back at some of the things that we've done, like, that have nearly broken us, but we look back with a smile, because those are actually the fondest memories, are the ones when the times were so hard, when we were nearly getting evicted, and when we were surviving on super noodles and things were really, really tough. Those were actually really, really fun times that we look back on really fondly.
Yeah.
The question is actually about stress and dealing with stress. And I know you guys have like 3 businesses. Don't know if do you include the podcast in that, or is that like a plus?
No.
So let's call it 4 businesses.
Yeah.
Obviously,
it kind of is developing into a business with like speaking gigs and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And similar for me, like work, freelance work, podcast stuff, projects, and it's like, to me, that dealing with stress isn't a question about how you deal with the stress. It's more about how do you deal with like productivity, because to me, productivity and being organized helps with not having too much stress.
Yeah, I think stress is the result of something bad that's happening.
Yeah.
And if you can work out why the bad thing's happening and try and deal with that, rather than just try and cope, because if you try and deal with the stress head on, it's just going to mask it for a while. Whereas like you're stressed or you're burnt out because there's an underlying problem there. And I think sorting that out is the most important thing.
I don't think I really get stressed.
You're saying this? Yeah, I get massively stressed.
You do?
Yeah, I have meltdowns all the time.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah.
But I don't think I do. Like, I get stressed if I'm on a job and we've got the wrong wall dimensions or something like that, and it's like a problem in front of me that has to get solved. But I don't know, I don't really... it just happens, and I just deal with it as it comes.
Yeah, so I think I'm kind of similar. I will get stressed in a situation in terms of like, turning up here and like we've forgotten the tripod, or there's 1 mic instead of 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's always a way to deal with it, and I think I'm very good at dealing with that, because behind it, I'm very on it with like productivity in terms of like planning stuff out, making sure I'm getting stuff done, so that when it does come to the actual recording, for example, or a work project, I've got everything sorted and organised, that if anything does go wrong in the moment, it can only go wrong in that moment. So then it just needs to be sorted out, and you can just, like you said, tackle it head on.
Yeah, I think like my biggest problem is because we do so much, we have so many businesses that are doing so many different things at one time. It's like, yes, you can get everything in order. So like most of the time it's fine, because you know what you're doing. This week I'm doing this and this, and then it's like, then something happens and another business needs you, and you kind of have to go and help out with that. And then because you're doing that, you're not paying. You'd planned to do all of this other stuff for this other business, and then something else comes in, and it's just like that. Not having enough hours in a day to do all of the things you've set yourself up for. I think that's when I get stressed, when you've got like too many people need you for something, and you've kind of said yes to them all. And then it's having to deliver on all of those and doing them well. And I think that's what kind of gets to me the most.
So then how do you deal with that directly when that situation would happen?
I have a bit of a meltdown normally. I think it's just like, I'll be like, okay, well, shit, all these things are happening. What do I need to prioritize? It's like, if I don't do any of them, the world's not going to end. So I think realizing that is really important. And then thinking like, well, if I didn't do any of these things, which would have the biggest impact if it didn't happen? Solve that one first. Yeah, that way around. Solve that one first, and then work my way back. 'Cause it's like some things, it's obviously not ideal that they're not being dealt with, but literally it's the kind of the least worst out of all of them.
Yeah, I think the prioritization is very important, and that's, again, comes down to like, if something goes wrong on a day, or if you know, you get an email saying the wall dimensions are wrong, or you can't get a certain type of paint or whatever. It's like you have to go, okay, actually, can we get on without that paint? Can we do it differently because the wall dimensions are different? Like, and work out what is the priority. The priority is to get the job done. The priority is to deliver on this. The priority is to, you know, whatever this person has asked for. So how can we make that thing happen with what we have available? And I think that's how I always attack things like that when I'm stressed. It's like, have the meltdown and then go, right, actually, let's take a step back. What can we do to make this situation as best as it can be? And I think once you start to, again, it comes back to being on the front foot.
Yeah.
Once you get on the front foot with it, you're in the swing of it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that stress disappears because you're like, right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And you just start like hammering through things, literally.
Yeah, I think as well, like one thing I've learned a lot is how important like just honesty is.
Yeah.
Like especially like with clients and stuff. So if you're dealing with lots of different people and you are having a meltdown and you need to do these things, say to some people like, look, this has happened, because generally people are quite understanding. Like people aren't dicks and they will help you out if you ask. But I think if you don't ask, that's when the problems happen. It's when you just don't say anything to them and they're like, well, I didn't know that happened. Yeah. So
the communication's important. Yeah, for sure. Have you got
and stress doesn't really achieve anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It just makes you feel like shit. So just try not to get stressed. Like look at things in context and look at stuff and say like, how will I even remember this in 5 years' time? And normally the stuff that you're really stressed about, you won't remember it in next week, let alone 5 years' time. So yeah, just zoom out from the problem and see whether it's really something worth something, like waking you up in the middle of the night or whatever. It's like, this too shall pass, everything.